We're going to start with some review. Last time we saw you, we left off with naming chemical compounds, and I found this really good article that summarizes it within 4 steps. Number 1. Is it an ionic or molecular compound? It is ionic if it has a metal, an element on the left or middle of the periodic table. So here you can see them in white. In a molecular, it has 2 nonmetals, an element on the right side of the periodic table above the staircase, plus hydrogen. So you can see those here highlighted in yellow. Number 2. Add an "-ide" to the end of the second compound's name. For both molecular and ionic compounds, change the name of the second compound so it ends in "-ide". For example, fluorine becomes fluoride, and hydrogen becomes hydride. Number 3. See if you need Roman numerals. Check if an ionic compound has a transition metal that becomes a multivalent ion, also known as if the element is in the middle of the periodic table and you don't automatically know its charge. You should have a table of transition metals on a blue handout you received in class. If you don't have that handout, you can go ahead and find this chart with a simple Google search. For ionic compounds with transition metals, you need to insert a Roman numeral after the name of the metal to indicate the transition metal's charge. For example, iron 1 chloride and iron 2 chloride. Think about what the charge of the metal needs to be to balance out the nonmetal's charge. What that means is if we look up here, chloride or chlorine has a charge of -1. I know this because of where it's placed on the periodic table. You can see here that we have 2 chlorine molecules. So if each one of those is a -1 and I have 2, that means this has a charge of -2. To balance something out basically means to make it 0. So if this is -2, in order to make this whole thing 0, iron must be +2. So that's why we write 2 here. Number 4. See if you need prefixes. Since there are no ionic charges to balance out in a molecular compound, you need to use prefixes. You can see those on this chart above. For example, dinitrogen pentoxide. You can see that there's 2 nitrogen, so you're going to use di, and there's 5 oxygen, so you're going to use penta, or pent in this case. For the first element, you do not need to say mono. For example, carbon monoxide, not monocarbon monoxide. So those are those 4 steps. You should have your foldable of notes that go into much more detail about how to name chemical compounds. I just wanted to do this quick review for you before we move on to the games. So all of this article and the games are going to be linked down in the description below. The first game is called Gridlocks. You're going to use your problem-solving skills to answer the table and unlock the grid. So if we start here with the first one, you can either start with the elements or the names, but you're basically going to fill in the blanks. So the easiest one is water. What elements do we know are in water? You should know that it has hydrogen and oxygen. We're going to look for those elements here. We know water will go in this space below. So let's move on. Iron sulfide. What 2 elements are in this name? First one off the bat, iron. Sulfide. We replace the suffix with "ide." We know is sulfur. So you can go ahead and put that here. Aluminum iodide has aluminum and iodine. Finally, magnesium oxide, magnesium and oxygen. You can check your answers. You're all good. You can continue on to the next grid. They'll get more difficult as you go on. The next game is called Rags to Riches. You're going to name compounds to try to win $1 million. All you have to do is answer the questions correctly. So what is the name of NaBr? You can refer back to your periodic table to find Na to be sodium, and Br will be bromine. So right off the bat, we know we have sodium. So let's look at our options. A has sodium, B does not have sodium, C does, D doesn't. So we can automatically cancel these two out. So we're left here. We know that when we're working with ionic compounds, we have to change the suffix to "ide." Which one of these has "ide"? A. That's correct. So you'll see with each one, you'll gain more and more money. If you make it to 1 million, go ahead and comment down below. You've earned bragging rights. Finally, we have some matching games. You have 3 options. You can do binary, ionic, covalent and ionic, and polyatomic ion matching. All you have to do with these is match the blue cards with the orange cards. So if I have sodium sulfide, if I look at the periodic table, I know sodium is Na. Here I see Na, and I can confirm that S is also sulfur or sulfide. Those two match. The covalent and ionic compounds are the same. You want to go ahead and match those together. For your polyatomic ions, you should have a chart on the blue handout you received in class, or from a chart that you see online. You do not have to memorize these ions, but with so much practice, you're probably going to end up memorizing them anyways, so this is a good test of your memory. Those are all the games that I have for you. Again, they're all going to be linked below. Go ahead and do one of them, all of them, as many times as you'd like. Use these notes that I found in the article. Use your foldable. Don't forget to have your periodic table out to go ahead and help you answer these. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. You can comment those questions down below, or you can email them to me or Matt. We're here to help. Good luck, and thank you for listening.